Welcome everyone to the next talk in the track D. This one will be in English. So I'm very happy to have Wolfgang Richter here, who is one of those people in Graz who was the first in agility. And when I describe new people to the persons of the AAC, I always say he is the head of AAC.
Oh.
So very happy to have you here today. For those who are at home, meanwhile, the room is decorated with a lot of different flags. And we're looking forward to your talk. What the fish are they doing?
Thank you. Thank you, Kati. Yeah, welcome. It's really a pleasure to be here and to have a talk today here. I mean, you see the title. This title is something that I did not come up with that. It was something I heard a lot when I talked to people who were in some kind of international setups. So this is the basis of everything I want to talk today. I mean, you see, you have flags here, you have the napkins here, you have also these small pigs, these small flags with the pigs on it, right? First of all, this talk is to confuse you and to demotivate you, all right? So I'm pretty sure you're in the right room now. But to relate it a little bit, I have also some motivation. So if you make it to the end, you can take your pick and get something of those, right? So this should work, I hope, somehow. Not really. Maybe I need to do this. Oh, yes. Actually, Joe Krebs started this topic in his keynote today. So I didn't know he was talking, he wants to talk about that, but the topic I want to talk about is really culture. Yeah, culture. I heard this term so often when I went to companies, and many people talked about company culture or culture in general and so on and so on, which made me happy because this brought me back to my roots. What I learned about 30 years ago, I guess, at university, and when I learned about international project management and all that kind of stuff. So way before agility. So way before somebody called me an agile coach or agile guide or whatever, right? We talked a lot about it, but in a different context. But still, this is something which is very valid and very important nowadays, I would say, right? It's becoming more and more the situation that companies have teams working in different countries, especially after the last 4 years we experienced, people are sitting in this country, that country, another country with different backgrounds, different cultures, etc. So this kind of international collaboration and everything that's related to it becomes more and more important and stronger. Do you agree? Or is this just my impression? It is, right? Do you think it will go away in the next couple of years? No, me neither. So I think whenever we start talking about team building, management, leadership, etc., we have to keep all these kind of things in mind. And there's one thing which made me sad. So I said it made me happy because it brought me back to my roots, but there's one thing that made me sad. And this one thing that really makes me sad is that so many people are talking about company cultures, but whenever I ask somebody, explain me what a company culture is, I don't get a proper answer. Let's do a quick experiment. What is a company culture? And I need to be very careful. Our keynote speaker of tomorrow is in this room, and he's a professor for psychology. So everything I say will be wrong, probably. He will judge me later. So sorry. Now, seriously, what is a company culture in your understanding? How would you explain that to somebody who is completely new to this topic and has no clue what you're talking about?
An example?
Yeah, sure.
From my two previous current. Oh, I have an example from my current and previous employee.
Yeah.
So company culture is at what time people attend the meetings. So in my current company,
Okay.
if you are 1 minute late, already people are writing you, hey, where are you?
Yeah.
In the other one, if people came 10, 15 minutes, jumped into the meeting, was no problem. It was like,
awesome.
Okay, just be happy that you're here.
Yeah.
That I'm here, yeah.
That's awesome. A great example. Yeah, thank you very much. Another one.
I would overall say a culture is a set of values and behavioral rules that a company has.
Yeah.
That's just it. So there are the companies where you late 1 minute, you already missed half of the meeting. There are other companies where they have the 15 minutes where you can arrive or not arrive.
Yeah, probably. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
I would say it's not only the rules, because you don't know you have rules, but the values, yeah, and I don't care about the values. Sorry. I would say it's the actual behavior of all the people in the organization. That what we are observing, how people act in an organization. And values and rules are good because they can maybe guide the actual behavior, but it's not the actual behavior, because a value is just a plan how you should do and not actually the thing how you really do.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you very much. So let's jump over that. The next one. Let me start with something which I called goals for international collaboration. When we have an international setup in some way, whether it's a team that's internationally cooperating, or we have the client in a different country and we deliver to this different country and so on, whatever situation it is. I think for all of these situations, we have at least these 5 goals that we can have a chance for some kind of success. Whatever the success is, it has to be defined, of course. So the first goal is to accept that everybody behaves, so behavior, equally and shares the same values is nearly impossible to achieve. That's something we need to accept. We have models, we have ideas, we have the assumptions we can do that with something like team building, whatever. No, forget it. Yeah. So people in different countries have different backgrounds. If you want to build a team across borders, it's not going to work anymore. I said I will demotivate you and confuse you. So I hold my promise. I keep my promise. You can disagree with me, so that's okay. But I continue like that for now. The second, oh, sorry, you wanted to take a picture? Yeah, okay. The second goal is to figure out the common denominators. It's very important. So if we have different backgrounds, different, let's say, political situations or religious situations or whatever it is, so differences, we need to find the common denominators. I liked your example very much because in my personal history, I had a similar experience. There was, Germany, Austria, we are very picky on being on date, Germany more than Austria, I guess. Yes. But and there was one situation where I had, actually was a friend of mine in his team, and there was a guy from a more southern country. I don't say the name of the country because, anyway, and he was always late, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and so on, which was normal in the other country, but not in the place he worked, right? And they had this agreement, or they tried to do it so that everybody will be on date. Whenever you come late, per minute, you pay €1. Yeah. And we go for drinks after that. And still he was late, And he was, and this guy addressed that problem to him, and he said, I don't have money with me, but he picked out €100, put that on the table. So this is for the next 10 minutes, leave me alone. Which is, I can understand that. So, like I said, common denominators. The third one is to learn to understand and handle different cultural backgrounds easily. But we can only do that if we are aware of the differences and what that means, right? Like science, values is a good example, but also science or something like that. For example, if in Austria, mimics, gestures, and so on, in Austria, that means great, right? Have you ever tried that in Italy? You know what I mean. Some people know what I mean. Yeah. So, fourth, to raise the personal level of tolerance for differences in order to decrease the chance for conflict. That means working on ourselves, actually. So we are not going to change the others. We need to change ourselves a little bit more. We can increase our level of tolerance for something. If we see it from a different angle, or if we understand better the cultural backgrounds and why it is that way, for example. And 5, to address learning requirements, potential conflicts, and other delaying factors from a management perspective. What do I mean by that? I mean, we talk so much about leadership, yeah, managing positions, leadership positions, and so on. For me, it's always a combination of leadership and management. Yeah, management means also understanding economics of something, right? So if we want to control, and I don't mean command and control of people, that would be the leadership part. I mean controlling in terms of economics, right? We need to understand how to factor these things into for example, a project plan, a business plan, and so on. So this is from the management layer what we need to consider and what we need to learn. And these are 5 goals. And I said at least those 5 goals we need to have in mind when we start working internationally, collaborate internationally. Culture. I love this term. It's so abstract. It means so much and nothing. But there were many people who actually did research on that and created models. I mean, there's a model for everything, right? Many models for everything. And I'm pretty sure you know this saying, every model is incorrect, but some are helpful, right? So to understand the situation better, I think also in this context, it makes sense to have some of the models in mind. I only want to show you one and only some aspect of this one. There is a link to a comparison tool I have in here. I mean, theory is nice, but I don't know how it's for you, but I like to play around with things, you know? If I have the theory, but to do something with the theory makes even more sense to me, or is fun. So let's see if this is working. The hosts promised me it's working. Oh, yes. This is a comparison tool, and the interesting aspect of that is you can enter a country, and I start with Austria, and see, can you read something on that? I'll explain that later, what exactly it is. We have here 6 dimensions. Oops, that's the chatbot. We don't need the chatbot now. So we have 6 dimensions in here, and they are part of Hofstede's dimensional model. What? It's not shared?
It's not shared, yes. We only
Sorry. Sorry to the online, but it's in the presentation. Is the presentation shared? I don't know. Okay, you can click it on the slide and try it yourself at home. Usually I should say don't try it at home, but this time try it at home, please. That's interesting. So we have 6 dimensions. And one of the most interesting one is this one, the first one here. So I have Austrian here. Power distance explains how we behave and how we react and how we feel if a superior person is in the room. Like I said, if the president of Austria would come to this room, and how would I feel? Would I approach him? Would I say something to him? Or would I step back and just talk anymore if I'm asked something or something like that? You know, this is this kind of dimensional, this power distance. You see an 11 here. It goes from 0 to 100. I've chosen Austria as the first one because it's the country with the lowest power distance. Yeah. Hofstede, by the way, was somebody who did this. He was a psychologist, and he did this in an organizational context a lot for IBM. So this was his background. And he just collected all this information, did a lot of surveys and so on, and condensed that in this tool. Yeah. You can also download his data as an Excel spreadsheet and so on. It's all on the internet, so it's available. But if you look at this one, 11 is very low. So if the president of Austria would come to this room, I would just say hello or something like that, and don't be afraid that something would happen to me if I would touch him or something. Nothing. Yeah, not that way, but let's try another country. I mean, I take whatever you throw at me. Which one? Turkey? Turkey. Turkey was the first one. Let's compare it to Turkey. No, it's different, right? So at least this one is 66, it's rather high already. Yeah. We have others which are going up to 80, 90 and so on. That means in this country, if there's a superior in the room, people will never, ever start talking. So if you expect those people to address a problem, a serious problem, they will not do it unless they are asked. And that's already, if you're in a team with people who expect others to speak up whenever there's a problem, and in a team who are probably much higher in this regard, it's not the same behavior anymore. You need to ask them actively that this problem is addressed. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And that's a strong factor if you start team building, to consider something like that. So if you're an Agile coach, a Scrum Master, a team lead, whatever, you need to have that in mind. You need to behave differently. You need to interact with those people from different societal backgrounds differently sometimes. Not always. I mean, there are more factors than that, but this is just one of the bases you have to keep in mind. Yeah? So how can I switch back now to my slides? Oh, there, yeah. It worked. So I just need to, is the wrong one? Okay. Good, we have hosts in the room. This one will take. So here's a little bit about the details about Get Hofstede and so on. The 6 dimensions, and here they are once again explained. This is done for societal culture, not company culture. Yeah, this is what you grow up with. So if you grow up in the same country for the first, let's say, 20 years, 20 years? Yes, no? I'm looking at Professor Koch. He's not shaking his head. No, that's what I learned, at least. This is built in the first 20 years or something like that. This society influences you a lot, right? Your behaviors, your values, and so on. And he condensed it in these 6 different dimensions. Yeah, I mean, this one is probably not really appropriate nowadays anymore. I would call it differently, but at least the explanation is still valid, I guess. Yeah. So, elements of a societal culture, values, we had that before, yeah. Also rituals, heroes, and symbols. So what does that mean? Symbols is, for example, the language, yeah. So the language is a very strong influence in how we are built. And somebody said, I can't remember that, words shape reality. Who was that? Does somebody know who? But I like this saying. So words shape reality. And this is actually, yeah, it makes this even more true. I mean, you have also other symbols like hairdo, flag, status, etc., gestures, as I showed before. We have heroes, people alive or already dead, we look up to. Yeah, they are some kind of influence into our beliefs. Yeah, in what we want to believe, maybe. Yeah. Rituals, going back to being on time or late or something like that. Yeah, so this is actually connected to this one here. So collective activities, it's also something else, like ways of greeting and paying respect to others and so on. So like a handshake here is normal, or in other countries do you do something else and so on. Or how you pick up the business cards or something like that. Because for a long time, the first time I ever received a business card today again, and I picked it up like that, like the Japanese way. I don't know why. I'm not used to that anymore. Everything is digital in my world, more or less, but it was interesting. And if you combine all that, we get the practices, what we call practices. But there are also values. That means what we consider being evil or good, or abnormal versus normal, ugly versus beautiful, and so on and so on. Also part of that. Yeah, let's jump over that. Here is what I meant. This is just in the beginning. This is the nationality, the national background, the societal culture, and everything connected, like rituals, practices, values, etc. This is what shapes us a little bit in the beginning. Yeah. Later on, also that comes into place, like social class, occupation, and business. And that's when we start talking about the company culture. Yeah, so that comes later. And this is a different model. or at different dimensions. So this is not the same. Here we have things like process versus results orientation, job versus employee orientation, professional versus parochial, open and so on. You can read it, yeah? And what that means, actually, I don't want it read word by word and so on. You can read it from the slides later on if you want to go into details. What I want to show you here is, if we're talking about company culture, that's not the same thing as societal culture. And very often we confuse that. We mix that, intermix that. But it's not. We have the societal background, of course, that shapes us. And then we have a company culture. And company culture consists of things like you addressed and had these examples for, right? And this in combination is already something which helps us to start understanding better how we can collaborate or cooperate. And of course, communicate, the big 3 C's we have. Yeah. So if a company is more process versus oriented than results oriented, that means people are just used to stick to a process. Yeah. This is part of a company culture. This is not a societal thing. This is a company thing. Yeah. And those people who are process-oriented, who should go from this one to the agile world in 1 minute or so, they will never be able to do that. It's impossible. It's once again, it's a journey for them. Yeah, and we need to address the journey. I liked what Joe said with the, this next goal. Yeah, and the way in between is not defined yet. So how to go from a process-oriented culture to a result-oriented culture in a company, you need to address the way in between, and you need to understand first where you are. Is this process-oriented? Yeah. And what level of process orientation do you have? Is this extremely process-oriented, a little bit, and so on? So this makes differentiates the journey, or defines the journey. Sorry. Also job versus employee orientation, professional, and so on and so on. And this is something which in this diagram or in this slide, you can easily see that this is probably the beginning. If we want to be leaders in such a situation, and that's the very difficult part. That's what I learned years back when I started learning about international project management. If you want to be a leader in such a situation, you need to understand all of that and be able to combine that. Yeah. But that means you also need to address those differences and know where you get the data from or the results from. You can do service in your company, for example. You can figure out how open are people, for example. Yeah. Things like that. Yeah. Do you think that's the end of the road? That was it? You don't think so? Why not? It's a lot already. It's already confusing me. I mean, I know this stuff, but it's confusing me. So what else should come? Individuals? Too late. Individuals. Okay, you're right. We still have something else. And there is something which is called the big 5 dimensions, or easily to remember then as ocean. This is openness, consciousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. I hate this word. Neuroticism. Did I say correctly? Thank you. So this is the next layer we also need to consider. So it's not just about the society, it's not just about the company, it's about the individuals as well. And this is what I never ever liked so much in agility. Actually, the smallest unity is the team, which is completely incorrect and total nonsense. It is, or? The smallest unity, if you want to call it that, is of course the person. So even if we measure team success and team progress and team velocity, which is the biggest, but forget about velocity. Anyway, We still have people, and we need to understand that people are different as well, so that we have also at this layer different characters, different factors, and so on. So that means if we really want to talk about international collaboration and address issues and create successful teams or companies who can work together, cooperate, collaborate across borders, then we really need to understand that all these three factors are very important. I like this metaphor here. Societies are the gardens. So this is really what the entire garden is. Organizations are the bouquets and the individuals are the flowers in here. So just to keep you thinking a little bit more. I'm fast today, which I like actually. Yep. This is pretty much what I wanted to share with you. I mean, this is, yeah, okay, a little bit of advertising. We have created an on-demand course for this topic because it really kept me thinking, and this is now e-learning. If really somebody wants to dig deeper into that, there is an online course for that now with much more information than just this one here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Now that we have time, because you were that fast, I see the hands going up, what I like. So, first question.
So thank you so much for the great explanation and the great humor. I don't know, I must emphasize this point. My question would be the direction, the last point, individuals. If you want to achieve something, then we just want to build trust. Do you have any recommendation to build trust or practices or something in this direction? I'm looking for any solutions, any article, any book, any things that we can build trust in an agile way, in an human way. Let's put it on this way.
That we can build trust in a human way. I like this question, but this is the most difficult one you ever.
That's why it's the question. Thank you.
I mean, of course, there are tons of books about that. Some of them are really. Actually, let me address this from a different angle, if I may. And you can say me if you're happy with the answer or not. Okay, because for me, it was always the question, how can we build trust? Trust builds, in my personal understanding, builds if I see my expectations to happen. For example, if we have agreements, people agree to it. In the Agile way, we talk about commitments and so on, right? If you're committed to something, I expect people to be focused and stick to the commitment without changing it individually and so on. So if this is required in a certain context. The other thing which is very helpful and always was very helpful for me is, or one of the reasons why trust was not built was people going in different directions. So one of the most impactful tools I ever used is goal setting to build trust. Because if you set a clear goal and everybody knows where the goal is, I mean, of course, on the way you can go either straight or slalom or whatever. However, we know there's the goal, and if we reach it together and everybody's committed to reach the goal, I trust the next time it will be the same.
Maybe I can make the scope a little bit smaller, and I am expecting it takes too many times to build the trust. That's why it will be maybe the questions, how could I achieve for my people, for my team, if I tell something, if I want something that they think it is necessary for us, not thinking about bad things or some scenario, it is wrong. They just want to make it under control, something in this direction. That's why.
And that context, I would say, this is something coming from Agile or is emphasized in Agile transparency. People need to understand why they're doing something. Yeah, what is the reason for that? If it look, sometimes activities and tasks look really stupid, useless. Sometimes, sometimes, just sometimes. Well, but there should be a good reason. You know, I tell people very often, let me give another example. User stories, yeah? I always say I don't like as a user, I can do something if you're familiar with this format, yeah? It's completely, but I like that there's this why information is in a user story. Why do we need it? Going back to value. So if I can explain why it's needed, people understand, okay, there's a reason. I invest my time and energy into something that is meaningful, yeah? If somebody, or if nobody can explain why is this needed, I would just delete this user story and not let people working on that. That's seriously what I'm doing what we're doing in our company. If we can't find out the why, it's dropped, it's deleted, not archived or something else. It's deleted. Yeah. If 2 years later somebody comes up with the idea again, then we just create something new. But there has to be a why, understanding why something needed, transparency about that. And no, not every every activity or task is stupid. I don't agree. Yeah. Does that make sense? Thank you.
Just would like to ask regarding the culture question, cultural differences between countries. From your own experience, because many companies grow, either they acquire companies or they establish new teams abroad, onshoring, offshoring, and so on.
Sure.
We all know it. Do you think companies should really look at the culture of the country, because it's really hard to get into the culture of the company that you are kind of acquiring when you are making this move? Or should this be something you can say, okay, I can still create this company culture to make this really successful?
Yeah, but you cannot ignore the societal backgrounds. That's impossible. May I may I tell another story of
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. I worked for a while in Australia and lived there. So this became pretty much my second home, Australia. And I worked, I mean, nowadays we would call it as a product owner. And the goal for this endeavor was to replace a telecommunication provider. So for example, in Austria, it would be A1 or something, and to replace the entire system and reshape the organization. So that was the endeavor we had there. And I started to count how many people are from different countries, and I stopped counting at 45. So this was... Yeah, it was the third biggest telecommunication provider there. So at this time, it was the second, and so on. It grew. And anyway, but it was 45 different nations at least. Yeah, and to make it even more complicated, the client was in Australia. We had a management team and developers in the USA, and later on we had also developers and in Austria and also in China later on. So we had all time zones included. So not just the cultural backgrounds, but also the time zones. And for me, it was really, really important because I was in a leadership position there. Yeah. And for me, it was really, really important to understand these different backgrounds. Of course, it was impossible to understand each and every detail of 45 different nations. That's not what I'm talking about. But if you go back to this slide, for me, it was really important. It doesn't follow me. It's slow. So I'm too fast. It's really about this one. For me, it was really important to understand these common denominators, yeah, and also the goal setting, that everybody understands what we are working on, what we are working for, and so on, and to find what is something that makes us a we, yeah, not them and the others, because China, USA, Australia, Austria, that's very far apart, but still, it was one endeavor, it was one goal, it was one result in the end. And this we, figuring out how to build this we, this was the important stuff for me. And I had to dig into social cultures and social backgrounds and societal backgrounds first, because there was no real company culture, what I would call company culture. That's something that was a little bit created. And you're right, this was there were so many people new to this program and this endeavor that we were able to create something for us. And that's what we did.
How did you dig in? How did you dig in? How did you found this common denominator?
Many personal conversations, many, can I say that? Yeah, in Austria, many beers to learn how people really live there and understand. You know, this was so interesting. I had one colleague from Scotland, and he acted like the super professional and talked in a clear English and so on over the day. But after business hours, after the second beer, he was the Scotsman, a different person for me. So, and this was really interesting. So it was a lot about the personal interactions. This made a difference for me and helped me a lot, and them a lot as well.
Wolfgang, you have been talking about we.
Yeah.
What's your spelling in German for we?
Sorry?
What is your spelling for we in German? Wir.
Wir, ja. Was es auf Deutsch bedeutet?
Yep.
Like I said, if you're in a team, you need to start identifying with something. That could be a team context, that could be an endeavor, that could be a company or something like that. If you go outside for a coffee or a beer or whatever you prefer, and you start addressing that or talking about that, telling stories about it, you don't say me and them anymore, you start saying we. Yeah. And that's a good sign that there is something which creates this we identification already.
So in our teams, we are talking about wir, appreciation, interest, and respect.
That's good. I like it. Sounds good to me.
Okay.
If you're looking to do a transformation, do you need to change the culture first and come up with almost like a synthetic vision of the future culture that they need to do, as well as any other pieces of work?
My honest belief is you cannot change the culture for it's impossible.
That's the depressing part of the talk.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for the talk. I really like the level in which we're in right now, but I'm very curious. I must ask a rather operational question because we spoke about trust, and there's such a, let's pick, since we mentioned it already, such a metric as team velocity. Isn't that perhaps a way of establishing trust as well?
Very often that's exactly resulting in the opposite in my experience.
Can you elaborate?
Velocity is just, first of all, velocity is very often faked, what I say. I mean, actually, there's an interesting aspect of it. If the team together agrees to fake it, and they will fake it.
Fair.
That's all I want to say about it.
That's fair.
Yeah, probably. Yes, exactly. Yes.
They want it to be high, then it will be high.
But the negative aspect, it's the team against management.
Since we have 5 minutes more and there is no question, that's why I just want to understand the point. It's said that being a family as a profession is wrong, right? I've also read in so much articles for that, and it could be also damageable. That's why the first question, are you agree on that? The second question, if yes, what is the difference between we and the family culture?
Well, this is a difficult one, and I know there are many discussions about this topic at the moment. You can feel like a family, I guess, in a professional context. That could happen, and I've seen that before. But you're not really a family, maybe in the context of traditional family setups or something like that. But, you know, we're talking here really about the emotional aspects. And to feel close to people in a professional setup, why not? But does that make you a family? I don't think so.
I wouldn't like to work with my family.
You got your answer. Yeah. No, like I said, I mean, for me, it's two different things, but to have some similar emotions, maybe yes.
You have also already on the website shown that we have different understanding from culture to culture,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
For me, I'm not thinking about also for my core family. I am agree on the point. I'm not, me too. But for the big family, we are giving extra and extra for my family. And if I this kind of feelings as a family, definition of the family, then it takes something from my private life.
Like I said, this is what I mean if I say similar feelings, and it can also behave probably. If you like a family member, you can also like a colleague, or it's probably the same emotion, maybe. Yeah. However, like I said, I'm not so familiar with the traditional definition of what a family is, actually. I would need to do further research on that to give you a proper answer. Like I said, from my personal understanding, I don't like to call in the company context it a family. Yeah. But to act or to feel like we are in a family, something like that, would make sense to me.
Thank you.
Any more questions? There's one coming.
One more? Okay.
So one question about the cultural background, so from the human aspect. Why would you think that, or how does it make sense to mix them up more if they're very contrary? Like, what would be the benefits or the challenges, or should we go the easy way to put similar ones in the same team? What's your opinion about these?
I'm just thinking which answer I should give you. The question, summarize the question. Should we go the easy way and put people with similar backgrounds in one team or not? So this was the end of the question, but I think that was the main part of it. Yeah. Still, I believe it's better to understand that there are differences and that a societal culture is something else, something other than a company culture, and that there are different models for that and different parameters, different dimensions, and so on. Should we go the easy way? Depends on what you like. I don't know. If you prefer challenges, you can go the hard way. No, seriously. Actually, if I would look at it from an economical standpoint, so just how expensive it is to build a team, I would prefer the easy way, definitely. That's from a management point of view. Because why should I invest so much money into team building if I know for this team, for this setup, it takes 2 years, and for the other setup, 2 months? Easy choice for me.
Or
sorry?
I would like to disagree with that saying, because yes, it's for team setup, it's easier if everybody just agrees. But
no, that's not what I said.
It's easier if the culture is similar, so
Yep.
you don't have that much time involved in getting to a team culture.
Yep.
But I think saying that's then the economic way to go, you're missing the point is what are you missing out by not having the different views in your team?
You can still have different views.
Yeah, but the more different views you have, the more different cultures you have there. Because if, for example, have a team that is responsible to creating a product, and I only have, let's just for easiness say, I only have Austrians in there, then most likely those Austrians will miss the point that German person would see there.
I'm not saying only Austrians, for example. What I'm saying is, if these factors are too different, then it doesn't make sense to me anymore. If they are closer together, it starts making sense also economically, and you have still different point of views and so on.
I think in the end, it's a balance.
It's a balance, yeah. Definitely.
I can agree with that.
You can live with it. Good, very good, very good. Thank you very much.
Okay, I would say for the rest of the questions, please find Wolfgang in the coffee break that we're having right now.
Yep.
And I say thank you for the talk and the audience.
You're welcome. And don't forget, here's something.
Danke dir.
Ja, danke, danke.
Nach deinen Folien wurde schon.
Oh, sehr cool.